Hey, it's Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and this is going to be a new monthly series. More specifically, this is going to be Kickstarter late pledges, something that I've been meaning to do for a while, and it's time to just get this off the ground and start it. Better to do it and fail and get mistakes and all that stuff, get it out of the way, than to keep pushing it off, hoping for perfection. And ideally, in the future, this is going to be probably mid-month. This one is coming in at the end of the month because there happen to be a whole bunch that are ending right away or ending by, December 31st, and so I want to get this video out before those ended, but I would say expect the next one to show up in roughly 6 weeks after this, and then from there, hopefully on a consistent monthly basis. And with it being a new series, a few things so you understand what's going on. First of all, if I make any mistakes, please let me know. If you try to back a game that I said is available and it isn't, let me know. There are a lot of interesting things going on with late pledges, the most consistent one being project creators who say, this thing is ending in, April, and 6 months later, 8 months later, it's still up and seemingly available to buy. So ideally, that means I'm right and the project creator just never shut down the late pledge. But if you can't back something, if I said something is available, if I set a date, if I do anything that is incorrect, let me know so that I can fine tune the data gathering that I am doing in order to get this moving. Secondly, or thirdly, or whatever number we're up to, if you are someone who is running a Kickstarter and you want your game to be, make sure it's listed over here, that I have my own email in the description down below. Go ahead and email me and we'll get that out. And then fourthly, and related to that, this is not going to be, there's already almost 100 things I'm going to be going through today, and it's not an exhaustive list. There are still things I'm trying to go to, there's still things I'm catching up on, but a big part of what I'm doing here is, in order to make the information as useful as possible, I am not putting in smaller projects. If you have a project that is, 200 backers and $15,000 raised, it's not going to show up here. I would say generally I'm looking for 1,000 backers minimum, just to see that sort of a general buy-in from an audience who wants to back the game, and even then, it depends on the pledge level. The exact cutoff, I don't have exact firm rules, but that's just all the, groundwork and framework. Lastly, because there's more rules I forgot, this is not going to be value focused. I will be covering every game as quickly as possible with whatever bare minimum information I have, but it's going to be a quick overview. Maybe I'll touch upon the value, but do not expect it. That is reserved for something where I have more than 30 seconds per game. And with that starting us off, the first things first is that there are two resources. I'll have them down in the links down below. There are two resources that I use in addition to all my going through my own list that I've been tracking for the past, year now. But one of those is going to be board game late pledge that definitely they had somewhere in the range of like 90 plus Kickstarter pledges you can back. So if you scroll down here, they have a whole late pledge list. So this is a good resource in case you want this information without having to watch these videos. And then additionally, there is a thread run on Board Game Geek, Kickstarter games late pledge mode. And again, I will have a link to this as well. This has 13 pages of links at 13 times 25. You do the math. Again, a lot of smaller projects will be on here, but both of these were incredibly instrumental in me putting together this video myself. And so if you want access to those, well, there'll be links down below. And starting off, we have Adventures in Neverland, late pledge now. Oh wait, before we do, one last thing. Something I hope to do in the future more is more information around the date something is ending, which is almost always a lie anyway, just worth noting, as well as whether the late pledge is the same price or not, and if so, by how much it's off. I already have that information cataloged. The problem is I don't have a good way right now of going through 100 games or whatever it is while also referencing that information easily. Hopefully next time I'll have a better system, but I decided a week ago to finally get this going, so this one's going to be the messiest of the batch, and hopefully in the future we'll have it more streamlined. But in any case, going off, Adventures in Neverland, this is going to be by Black Box Adventures. This one ended a while ago. This is one of the first Kickstarters I covered in one of my roundup videos. Ultimately, this is one, there's a whole little bit of drama with Tom Vassell around this game. This is going to be a bit of an adventure game set in Neverland. Late pledge is available on this game to go ahead and back that. From there, we have Genotype, a Mendelian genetics game. This is still available to back. I don't know anything about this game. I never covered this game in any way on the channel, and I'm not doing research on ones that I haven't covered for the sake of this late pledge. But this is a 45 to 90 minute game, 1 to 5 players, 14 plus, coming in at roughly $39 for the base game, $55 for the collector's edition, and this is going to be available to late pledge, which I'm going to stop saying at the end of every one, because ideally, every single one. And by the way, these first batch I'm going through are all ending supposedly by December 31st. So everything I'm doing right now, I'll tell you when I'm done, they're all ending by December 31st. This is going to be Stars of Akarios. I covered this way back when. It's an ambitious game with, I believe it has an app as well. Space exploration, whole situation going on here. I don't know a ton about the game. It was a long time since I covered it, but you're coming in pretty expensive, unfortunately, at $105 for the Starlight Academy. That's going to be Canadian, not US. $105 Starlight Academy, $155 for Starlight Institute. This is giving you anything from the pure exploration, the space stuff, the miniatures, all this stuff. Expensive, ambitious, but I have heard a lot of good things, and and going on from there. We have Glenmore 2 Highland Games. Glenmore, oh my gosh, this is by Fun Tales. I covered this one a while ago. This is the expansion to Glenmore, a game that I still have on my shelf. Not one that I love, but one that I really, really like. It has consistently survived purge after purge, although I frequently do wonder how long it'll last. Something about it, I like it a lot, I don't love it. But anyways, Glenmore 2 is the expansion, and I actually do want to get my hands on the expansion. For myself, I decided I'm picking this up at retail because the value was not as much there to me. I didn't follow to the end of the campaign. Things may have changed, but I know that in general, their prices are a little bit on the higher side, especially once you factor in shipping to US. That being said, Pledge Manager closing soon, December 31st, or somewhere around then. Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor. Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor is going to be by Nemesis Games. It is their one and only Kickstarter, and it did fairly well with 3,500 backers, $324,000 raised. This is going to be a cooperative 4X game with various pledge levels from $79 to $129, depending on if you're getting the expansion. Missed the campaign, you can still back it on CrowdOx. This is available on CrowdOx to go ahead and late pledge up until December 31st. Moving on, we have Riftforce. Riftforce was a deck construction game that looked actually pretty interesting. This is one that, it was very interesting. This one was barely on my radar, but it actually looks like a fun little back and forth game. This is on my own radar to debate whether I should late back this one or not. I don't know if it's worth it, but I'm tempted, and it's on the cheaper side. Cheaper is relative in the Kickstarter world. Games that I would not pay $25 for in retail, and Kickstarter, I'm like, hey, that's cheap. I'll go ahead and get that. In any case, Riftforce, so 25 euro for the game, plus shipping, and available to late plays. I'm still doing it, even though I said I wouldn't do it. Night Parade of the 100 Yokai. This one is technically over. According to their last date, this one is over. You can no longer back it. According to clicking on the link, well, I can still back it, so maybe you still can as well. You'll have to go ahead to the late pledge link to go ahead and back it. I believe I'm going to be trying to include links to everything down below because there's like 100 games and links take up a lot of text. I don't know if YouTube will let me put that information in, so we'll have to see how that goes. I'll try to include as much information down below as I possibly can, but expect to potentially have to just Google these yourself if I just can't put down the text. But in any case, Night Parade of the 100 Yokai, so this is available. This one is one that I was very on the fence myself. Looked cool, looked interesting. Ultimately, it's $50. It's a decent amount of money for a game that might just be a passing phase, which is why I didn't back it. That being said, this one was available on Tabletop Simulator. I assume it is still available on Tabletop Simulator. I don't know for sure, but you can go ahead and back it. Moving on from there, we have Untamed Feral Factions, Spirit Strike Edition. This is another one that I didn't personally back, but was pulled in by. It falls into the category of two-player head-to-head dueling games, which I find are always tempting and never or rarely actually stay in my collection. But this is an interesting one. It comes with, this, I believe this is an expansion or redone. Again, I did a full video on it. Not full video. I did it in a roundup video and covered it more there. But time goes on, and I don't remember every single detail about everything. So we have Spirit Strike Edition for 26 euros. So you're looking at roughly 26 euro, 34 euro for the deluxe edition. Few options there, but you can go ahead and late pledge that. Moving on, we have Shaolia second print and expansion, and I think this is also one that's supposedly closed. I don't remember exactly all the dates. I've done all these links. It is what it is. Moving on, Shaolia is one that I backed the original Kickstarter, and I turned around and moved on from it because I found that it didn't give me the experience that I was looking for. That being said, it is fairly well rated, decently rated. Not like, amazing, but people do like the game. And you can get the expansion or the full base game as well. A whole bunch of pledge options, including a bigger deluxified box, all wrapped together. That's going to be Shaolia Warring States. Then that was everything that was ending up until December 31st. From here on in, the dates are going to vary. I am not bothering to list the dates because the dates are so often a lie. The amount of Kickstarters that I have clicked on where there's a date that it's ending and it's closing up and it's wrapping up and it's done. I mean, for imminent dates, I will at least pretend to respect them because I have to some degree, but for anything that is not imminent, I'm barely going to bother putting the date in, if at all, because there seems to be no point. And speaking of which, we have Aeon Trespass Odyssey, which quite a while ago I did a full video on because it was imminently closing, and surprise, surprise, we're still here. Aeon's Trespass Odyssey, this is going to be by Into the Unknown. This is an ambitious game that is either going to fall into the category of things we forget over time, or it's going to be the seventh continent, the next Kingdom Death monster. It combines elements of both into a game that is fairly aspiring in what it's doing. $1 million raise for a first-time project creator is no small feat whatsoever, and overall, the feedback has been very good. I know One Stop Co-op Shop had a very good, fairly positive feedback on it, as well as King of Average had fairly positive feedback. I have had a chance to play the prototype. I've only played like 3 of the tutorial battles, so I didn't get a full picture of what the game has. I just had too much on my schedule to really dive into it, and the game is overwhelming in the amount of content there is even in the prototype. That being said, it was intriguing. The battle mechanics, the battle elements, and that sense of escalation, it definitely hinted at the potential for what I'm looking for in this game. Ultimately, the theme does not pull me in, combined with the overload of content when I already have too many games, is why I'm not personally backing it, but I know a lot of people who are incredibly excited about this one, and this is your opportunity to jump in. Oh, there's actually, this was relevant. They are going to be upping their prices, supposedly. If you look at the most recent update, come in January 1st, something like that, they're going to be upping their prices significantly. So while the Pledge Manager is not closing, the most recent update says that they will be upping their prices on the base pledge. So this might be your last chance to get it at the current price, which already is like $5-10 higher than the Kickstarter, but it supposedly will jump from there. So jump in on this one soon, even if it's not back, even if it's not actually closing down. Then we have Catapult Kingdoms. Catapult Kingdoms was one that if you missed the late pledge, then half the value is already gone in this one. That being said, Catapult Kingdoms is a light little game, crossbows and it's I guess a redone version of crossbows and catapults, but with physical objects. Basically just toss other things. It's a little game that involves knocking stuff with ballista and catapults and all these different things and bashing people down. Looks whimsical, looks fun. This is the kind of game that might be fun to play when you're a little tipsy, or might be fun to play with your family or kids. This is available to late pledge, which again, I'm still saying. I don't know why I'm still saying it. Chronicle X by Arcana Studio. This may well be the oldest game on this list. I don't actually know. I didn't keep track, but this is definitely fighting for that oldest space on the list. Supposedly you can still late pledge on this one. If you click to that link, it takes you to pages that sure look like you can late pledge. This is going to be by Arcana Studios. It's going to be one of their longer lasting Kickstarters that still hasn't fully delivered. And again, lots of stuff. I never actually covered this game, so I don't actually know enough about it. I just know that the Arcana typically has had amazing miniatures, subpar rest of components. I don't know where Chronicle X will lie, but for, $99 or $199, depending which pledge level you want to get, you can back this game. Then we have Company of Heroes, the board game. This one, again, is still technically available. This is so many games are just sitting around for quite some time. Company of Heroes has been around for quite some time. 4,526 backers, $830,000 raised. This is going to be obviously a port of the video game series brought to Kickstarter with miniatures and tanks and all these things. I never really looked into myself because I'm just not typically pulled in by the World War II theme in general. And for a while I meant to do a late pledge video. Hey, you can still late pledge this. You might want to back it. Never got around to it because I never got a firm sense of what was going on and never really overly looked into myself. But for $65 for the 2-player core set, $99 for the full core set, or going up from there to other pledge options, you can go ahead and back this game. Moving on to Dawnshade, The Watcher's Prophecy. This is one of my letdowns for the year in the sense that, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about the game potentially in the sense that what the promise it brings. This is going to be an obvious chip theory, not knockoff, but chip theory inspired system with a combination of neoprene mats and chips in a box that everyone's loving to hate, including myself. They have a regular box option as well, but that's to each their own. But my problem with this was ultimately that it was fairly expensive in what it was offering you with all the, and even the neoprene mats were like a paid additional add-on and everything else. Ultimately, it cost a lot of money for something that was just not vetted in terms of the overall hitting the market and being loved by enough people. For $98 for the Kinship Pledge, $148 for the Watchers Chosen, $225 for the all-in pledge to get everything. There were lots of options, all expensive, all intriguing. I did see general positive feedback about this one. It may well be the game that you are looking for, or it might be knockoff Chip Theory games. I don't really know. To each their own. Check out this one if you'd like to. Moving on, we have Die in the Dungeon with 1,282 backers and 73,000 Canadian raised. This is one that I did cover and don't remember that much about. It had things, it had pieces and other stuff, and it had like a full deluxe pre-painted pledge or something. It had a whole bunch of stuff, but ultimately available for late pledge. I'm still saying it. It's a thing. It lets me move to the next one, whatever. Divinity Original Sin. This is another one that I covered with a full why I backed it video. This is one that I am optimistic about while also being nervous about. It falls into that category of it does things differently in a way that may well make it a game that is perfect for my collection, and I'm excited, and the miniatures look cool, and I couldn't care less about the video game. It is inspired by a video game. Divinity Original Sin is a video game that has had 2 iterations, and now we're into the board game. There were enough positive things about this game from people who tried it or had an opportunity to check it out that I was pulled in and intrigued by it. They have gone through a few stages of reworking it, so we don't know where it'll end up. It may well be an amazing, incredible experience. It may well be one of my Kickstarter regrets. Time will tell. We'll see how that goes. I am optimistic, but also not certain. That's just the way life works, not full of certainties. But moving on, we have Either Fields. I did a full why I backed it. I have a full review of this one. This is one that has become very notorious or whatever it is in the sense that both Shut Up and Sit Down and No Pun Included, No Pun Intended, No Pun Included or whatever it was, both put out fairly scathing reviews on the game. Now, I would recommend watching the Shut Up and Sit Down one more than the No Pun Included, because I think even if you want the negative, Shut Up and Sit Down did an excellent job of distilling both the positives and the negatives of Aetherfields. For myself, I agree with most of the critiques while still enjoying the game. It's still set up on my table over there. I'm still going through the dreams. It has been a week and a half because Kingdom Rush has taken up all my free solo time where Aetherfields was. But anyways, this is one that, rest assured, it'll hold its value. I've seen people like asking for refunds, trying to cancel the pledge, whatever it is. You can do that, or you can just get your hands in it, try it, and it'll still hold its value. Awakened Realms games do not drop in value for quite some time. People are always interested. There are always other people who are intrigued, who want to try it out, and a few reviews that are scathing from people who notoriously don't like Kickstarters shouldn't change that, and ultimately won't change the Kickstarter landscape or the landscape of Aetherfield. So you can go ahead and still back that one. Moving on, we have Final Girl. This is in the category of ones that I am tempted to back and haven't yet, but we'll see whether I actually click. There's like 3 or 4 on this list that, as usual, as a result of doing these videos, not only am I giving you temptations, I'm giving myself temptations as well. Final Girls is going to be by Van Ryder Games. I know a few people who have played this game who say it's an incredible experience. I believe Jeremy Howard, don't quote me, I believe he really enjoyed this game, really looking forward to it, really excited, but I've seen multiple people who think this is going to be their next amazing solo game, and Van Ryder Games already does a decent job at their solo games. And so this is going to be one that, I mean, for $35 for the feature presentation, $55 for the double feature, or $89 for the full fright, you can get a ton of content here, solo-friendly content. For myself, I'm intrigued, I'm pulled in. I just don't care about horror as a theme, and jumping in at $89, which would be my ideal thing, because I do all or nothing. I'm very all or nothing. It's not a good character trait, but either way, this is one that I'm tempted by, pulled in by. We'll see whether I actually get it or not, but that's all that. Foundations of Rome. Another one that I did a full should you back it or whatever it is, or why I backed it, plus a little bit of a review because I had the opportunity to play it on Tabletop Simulator. And this is one that I mean, first of all, I think it's excellent. I really think it's an excellent game. I went ahead and backed it. I got the game because it was a solid experience. It was not the experience I thought it would be. It was decently tactical and a lot of fun. Is it completely overproduced for what it is? 100% it is. But that's, that's Kickstarter. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact this will take up a full Calyx cubby. I'm okay with the fact that, I mean, the game trace should ideally make it incredibly easy to pull in or out or get it to the table. We'll see how time plays out, whether that actually works out. But it's one that I'm excited about. And of course, the late pledge is still open because they are still waiting on the washed pictures of the miniatures so that people can decide if they want to get that wash set or not. So it's available for whoever knows how long. And from there we move to Frosthaven. Frosthaven, it's worth mentioning, I think this is available for pre-order, but I think it's like a $30 bump. So this is one that if you'd missed the Kickstarter, where I already thought it was an okay back at best, I would highly recommend waiting for retail if you missed the Kickstarter, because now it's $130 to pre-order it, plus shipping, plus all that stuff. I'm not going to overly talk about Frosthaven because it's Frosthaven, but it's the successor to Gloomhaven, and it'll be exciting, and it'll break records, and people will buy it, and people will try it, and people will rate it, and will still probably not overtake Gloomhaven. It's just the nature of the way things work. Remember Pandemic Legacy Season 2 compared to Pandemic Legacy Season 1? So, that's Frosthaven. Guards of Atlantis. This is one that I just recently put in my top Kickstarters of 2020. It is a game that I love. It is a Kickstarter I'm excited about. The development of the game that I already loved and streamlining it and smoothing it out to a better experience is one that I am very excited about. I did a full video. It should be on the page somewhere. I did a full video of this game over here. There we go. Somewhere. Here we go. Guards of Atlantis 2, why I'm backing it. I did a full video why I'm backing it, and ultimately it comes down to A, good game, B, will probably hold its value. Not a great back, but a decent back, and that is basically Guards of Atlantis 2. You can jump in for as low as $59 for the core game, or you can go all the way up to whatever, $149 for the all-in to get everything. And moving on, we have Moonshine Empire. This is one that I barely remember. I covered this a while ago, and I completely forgot about this one, so I can't comment on the gameplay because I don't remember enough about the gameplay. What I can tell you is that it's available to late pledge if you still want to get this game. I mean, it's Moonshine themed, so something's going on there. It's got hexagonal kind of movement, so I don't remember much about the game, so we're gonna move on to the next one. So we have Orcquest Warpath, the board game. This is one that has amazingly cool miniatures, and also I've never looked into this game. I've heard about it. I've had people ask me to look into it at different points. Never got around to it. I've never dived into this. I know it has cool miniatures. I know it seems okay. Something about the game is just not pulling me in personally. That's my own personal biased opinion, and I don't need to look into it because if I do, I may well end up backing it. That's just the way life works. We're gonna move on now. Yeah. Anyway, Steampunk Rally Fusion. So Steampunk Rally Fusion is gonna be by Roxley Games. Roxley Games is an incredible company. Any Kickstarter they ever put out, I will be paying attention to. Although because of what I do on YouTube, every Kickstarter anyone puts out, I'll be paying attention to. So I guess Roxley's just not that special. Never mind, they're not that special. Their games aren't amazingly overproduced and amazing to look at and visually delightful. They're not. They're just not. Dice Throne, Brass Birmingham, Steampunk Rally, Santorini. They're not visually delightful at all. In any case, going back to Steampunk. Steampunk Rally is a game that the original Steampunk Rally is a game that I did enjoy, didn't love, and my game group didn't love it even less than I did, so it just wasn't going to hit the table. But I liked the general theory of the game, kind of want to like it more, kind of tempted to late back this, but common sense will prevail for today. But in any case, $77 for Canadian for the game itself. It comes with these cool multicolored dice, the whole fusion aspect, and it's a solid game system, and you can go ahead and back it. And moving on from there, we have Storm Thunder, Heirs of Ruin. This is one that you can expect to see on the next 5 of these videos or something. I assume the late pledge for this one will be open for a while. We're still waiting on Wild Ascent to deliver. It should be any day now, but it should be any day now for a while, so we'll see how that plays out. And Storm Thunder is going to be the amazingly over-the-top produced everything with tons and tons of miniatures, over-the-top content. You can go in for as little as $149, as little as $149. See what Kickstarter does to us. It traps us with its, promises of money and miniatures and stuff, and then I say sentences like as little as $149, which is ridiculous, but in any case, or as much as $600+ if you want to get absolutely everything in the pledge manager. You see why I say as little as $149? That's why I say as little as $149. Moving on from there, we have the Age of Atlantis. This is going to be by Eldorado Games. This is one that I am intrigued by and also totally prepared to be let down by. It looks like the kind of game that I am more likely to get to the table than compared to, let's say, something like Storm Thunder, in the sense that it's an engine civ building game where you're going to be putting buildings out, developing your tech, doing a whole bunch of stuff in a system that a lot of people seem to like a lot, but also had some critiques about balance and streamline and other things, whatever it was. And so Eldorado's still spending some time developing and finalizing that system to hopefully give as good a game as possible. I jumped in because it's $59. I was a risk I was willing to take. I think it is a risk category. It's one that I think will potentially be a good game, but will potentially be one that is, good but forgettable. Good but forgettable is... A lot of games are good but forgettable, and we'll see how this one plays out. I am optimistic, prepared to be let down, and if you are optimistic and prepared to be let down, go ahead and jump on in. And I had a full video on this one as well, so if you want to check that out, I don't know if it's on the page over here, but it's somewhere. You can check my channel, just Google Board Game Co. Age of Atlantis. In general, if you ever want to see whether I covered a video, the fastest way to do it is go to Google. Google's got your back here. Type in Board Game Co. and type in the name of the game, and it will probably pop up. I don't think it's ever not popped up if I did a video. Moving on, we have Relics of Rajavihara. This is going to be by Joe Slack. This is a little puzzle style game that I actually have the prototype on my shelf. I haven't actually played it because I got the prototype after the Kickstarter ended. Maybe I'll do the prototype at some point. So maybe if I'm still, doing these videos and this still open next time, maybe I'll be able to cover it. But it's a light little solo puzzle thingamajiggy experience that I am intrigued by. I tend to like puzzle games that are of this style. I like them on my app, but I also like the tactile nature of board games, and that I assume would transcend over to puzzles as well. I should definitely give this one a shot because, well, honestly, if I can back this one, if I can late pledge it, I am interested in going ahead and late pledging it because I'm a puzzle and stuff, and I don't mind. In general, when I like a game, once I like a game, I don't mind overpaying for it. It's when I don't know if I like the game that the whole value thing comes into play for me. But losing $10 on a game that I enjoy, that to me is just the price of entertainment. This is no different than going to a movie, getting some ice cream, doing whatever. Moving on, we have Wonderlands. You know what's like? I don't mind paying $7 for my delicious double whatever ice cream cone, black raspberry from Mitchell's, whatever. That stuff is amazing. But paying that same $7 to get a new flavor that's not as good, that can feel like a letdown. It's not always about the money, but it's about what you get for the money. I don't know why I'm interrupting an already way too long video with this stuff. Wonderland's War by Druid City Games is one that you can go ahead and late back. This is another one that was recently in my top 10 games of 2020. It's one that I'm excited about. It basically has, I'm pretty sure this is the same price as the campaign, so you can get all the stuff in the late pledge, but it's going to be by Druid City Games or by Skybound Games, whatever it is, and it's going to have aspects of area control as well as aspects of Quacks of Quedlinburg, chips and drawing and drafting and all that stuff. And moving on from there, it's one that I am also, like Age of Atlantis, whatever it is, I am excited for, but I'm also prepared to be let down by. There are games that I think I'll like, there are games I'm less certain I'll like, and anything under that I just don't back. Moving on, we have Wolfenstein the Board Game by Arcana Studio. This is one that you can go ahead and late pledge. Why am I still doing this? Anyways, Wolfenstein the Board Game by Arcana Studio. This is going to be one that had a whole bunch of stuff. They had a lot of pushback on the fact that the miniatures were assembled by yourself, so they, for like an extra $10-15, they gave you the option that they will assemble the miniatures for you, so you can get all that in case you wanted those amazing minis or whatever it is. I wasn't actually pulled in by the art style of the miniatures. One of many reasons why why I didn't back this one in the end. But this one, Arcana Studio was trying to, I guess, turn a new leaf in the production quality that they brought to the table. Not just the miniatures themselves, but also the terrain and hopefully better cards, better card stock, better tokens, all of that. And that's basically the Wolfenstein. Moving on, we have Who Goes There, 2nd edition. You can pre-order this. This is by Certifiable Studios. This is going to be 6,400 backers on this game. Jeez. $500,000 raised, and it's going to be Who Goes There. This is going to be the same genre as The Thing, which I think is showing up later on this list. But it's basically that idea. It's by John Carpenter's The Thing. It's going to be based on that same basic premise. Very different styles of games around the same theme. And you can... I don't know why I'm doing this. Moving on to Waste Knights. So this is going to be fall into the category of Waste Knights more than anything else on this list or whatever. I am very curious whether you can actually late pledge it, because when you click on the link, it lets you add it to your cart. It lets you go through all the checkout process. I didn't actually buy it because I don't want to buy it, but I've also seen it showing up on people's doorsteps. So can you late pledge this or not? I'm very confused. All that said, Waste Knights is supposedly available for late pledge. I have not looked into this one myself. I don't know much about the game. It looks cool. Cool theme, post-apocalyptic, all that stuff. You know, got some miniatures, not overly miniature heavy. Has all that, and you may or may not be able to late pledge this one, but the link, sir, seems to imply that you can. Titans, historical fantasy miniature board game. Titans is a game that I backed because it falls into that area control genre. I backed this on the strength of Sam Healey's Ward alone. This is one that I was very intrigued by because Sam Healey seemed to play it and seemed to enjoy it. Although, of course, maybe he's just at a convention and being nice. It is hard to say games are bad when you're on camera and the creator is staring you in the face. It is hard. I respect the fact that it's hard. All that said, it does look interesting and it has cool miniatures. Miniatures that I did not back this game for the miniatures. These Titans are a little over the top, and the rest of the stuff seem like they're going to be too small for me to care about it from a miniature standpoint. I think the miniatures will be nice. They'll add to the experience if it's a good game, but it's certainly not why I backed the game. I backed it because it's the area control genre, and I'm always searching for the next amazing area control board game that I can play, because I don't have a ton already that I already love. Moving on from Tiny Epic Pirates, we have by Gameland Games. This is going to be the first Gameland Games to break $1 million. Tiny Epic Pirates bringing a rondel action to the table, because that's where it is, and a whole bunch of stuff on the ship. I am intrigued by this one. This is probably the one that I'm currently most interested from the Tiny Epic series. In general, the Tiny Epic series for me has historically let me down. I've always found them to be good, but not great, and I think they're amazing for the table space they take up, or for the shelf space they take up, but that's not the criteria I'm personally looking for in games. That being said, lots of people love the Tiny Epic series. Lots of people collect every single one. There's a reason that a game that costs $25 still managed to make $1 million on Kickstarter. That is impressive. Moving on, we have Time of Legends Joan of Arc by Mythic Games with late pledge limited time ! This limited time late pledge has been around for quite some time. I will take that limited time with a heavy grain of salt. I believe as of right now it's ending in February, but again, those dates are just made up and constantly changing on a regular basis. This is one that you can dunk a ton of money on. You can spend as little as $80 for the Tonic Pledge, which is the expansion. You can get the base game alone, $109, no, not that one, $129 for the core pledge, or you could just spend a ton of money getting absolutely everything. Joan of Arc is the mother of games that you're looking at and saying, I mean, at this point we have a ton of them. We have Storm Thunder, we have Nemesis, we have Joan of Arc, we have any number of different game systems that you can spend a ton of money. Batman Season 3 is going to have who knows how much content. Point is, board games are expensive, and you should probably stop watching this video if you want to save your money. Moving on, we have the Isofarian Guard, another one that I put out a full dedicated video on why you should or shouldn't back it, or more specifically, why I chose not to back it. But overall, this is going to be by, who's it by? I can't remember who's it by. This is by Sky Kingdom Games, who did the Stonebound Saga, if I'm not mistaken. And for $79, you can get the game. For $94, you can get the game plus the foreteller. And for $109, you can get basically everything there. Or, of course, you can go ahead in the late pledge and see if it's the same price, because I don't remember offhand if it's the same price. This is going to be chip bag building to a degree. I can't remember the exact aspect of it. And it's going to be half narrative, half exploration, half mechanics, all that, with a foreteller app that actually, the foreteller app for this game is the closest reason why I debated playing this game, because it seemed, I mean, it was a really well done app. You can watch go to the Kickstarter and you can listen to all that stuff. Sea of Legends, going to be by Zach Weissman, 4,736 backers, pledged $500,000, which is pretty solid. I believe this was their first Kickstarter, but not their first time in the industry, I believe, if some memory serves correctly. This is going to be some sort of a exploration piratey game with some miniatures that were really cool. I was really intrigued by this one, pulled in, like, look at this little monkey guy, whatever he is. I mean, these look cool. They had a lot of cool miniatures, mostly tied to the various add-ons you can get, or everything else you can get to the game. That could be the all-in pledge for $155. For myself, it required an app to play, and games that require an app generally haven't worked for me. A lot of people have said that the app is just no different than a book. Maybe it will be totally fine. I just chose not to take the risk on this one, but man, these miniatures look amazing. Moving on, we have Hybris, Disordered Cosmos. This is one that I covered briefly. I was very torn on this one. There are aspects of this game that were very intriguing, but I wasn't sold on the end quality of the game. I wasn't sold that this would be a streamlined, amazing experience. To be clear, I didn't play the game, and this is my own conjecture. At the end of the day, Kickstarter is a place where you have to make opinions. Sometimes I can make opinions based on playing the game, which is helpful. Other times I make opinions based on not playing the game and seeing who else played the game. What did they say? Looking at the Kickstarter, looking at the game, getting a feel for it. I was very intrigued by Hybris while not being pulled in by it. If you want to be pulled in by it, well, you can go ahead and late pledge. Moving on to Perseverance Castaway Chronicles by Mind Clash Games. This is one where there was a lot of pushback on the miniatures because they had like a mix of standees and miniatures, and that's just a recipe for disaster, as we all know. That being said, Mind Clash Games is well loved and well loved for a reason, and they turned around, listened to the backers, and basically gave everyone like a ton of extra soldier miniatures for free. They're like, here you go, here's all these extra, hordes of plastic in case you were on the fence as to whether you should or shouldn't buy our game. Here's just a ton of extra plastic to dump onto your table because that's what we want to do, and it worked. I mean, it almost pulled me in. I did not get pulled in, and sadly, for myself, Mind Clash remains a company that I haven't actually played their games. I have a Nakrine on the shelf. I still need to get Tricarian. I really want to play their games. I just haven't gotten to the table. Something about these heavy games, Mind Clash, Lacerda games, they just, it's been, and also keep in mind, been a hard year for getting new games to the table, and the heavier games are just even harder. Moving on, we have Mantis Falls, a game of trust. This is one that I was really intrigued by Distant Rabbit Games. I was really intrigued by this one. It's like a two-player, I think it's two-player only, 2 to 3 player, but it has this aspect of like a two-player game where you're like deduction and social whatever. I can't remember all the details, but it seemed to pull you in the level of trying to figure out what happened, close your eyes, look at this. It was intriguing in the premise it provided. For myself, it seemed a little bit pricey for what you were getting compared to just waiting for retail, and so I figured I'd wait for reviews. Quacklo, that's right, Quacklo had a video on this that was actually very interesting. Watch Jesse and Jan from Quacklo play the game. Very intriguing premise. I'm still intrigued, just hopefully not backing it. Hopefully the series will not cause me to back a million games. Dead Reckoning by AEG. You can go ahead and late pledge this game. Still available to back. I believe the prices were exactly the same. Dead Reckoning is one of my highlights of 2020. It's a game that I did not back, but that's drama related reasons. But rest assured, I will be picking this up. Dead Reckoning was an enjoyable experience to no end. I haven't really delved into the card crafting system by John D. Clear, but for Dead Reckoning, it was a solid experience. I was really pulled in by it. I cannot wait to return to this deck building narrative, not narrative, but like sea exploration world that they have over here. Really solid, really accessible, and pretty decently easy to teach, all things considered. A little bit of iconography and some stuff there, but overall pretty easy to get to the table. Moving on, we have Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria. This is by Daily Magic Games. I tend to like the Valeria system of games. My favorite is still going to be Valeria Card Kingdoms. Margrave's probably along with that, a step below it, and then Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria is probably my third favorite in their series. Overall, I really enjoyed the dice drafting of the game. I really enjoyed this. Is going to be designed by, I know him, Stan Kudensky. Stan Kudensky is going to be designed by him, and it was a solid system that I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to getting the final game to my shelf, to my table, all that. But you can late back it, obviously, because we're talking about it. Spirits of the Forest Moonlight. So, Spirits of the Forest Moonlight, you can still late back this one. This is going to be by Gonzalo Acquide. I don't know the company's name on this one. I don't know the company's name. It's by Michael Schacht? No, I don't remember who the company is for this. But in any case, Spirits of the Forest is a game that is on the lighter side. This is a lighter game in terms of what you're looking for. So if you check it out on Board Game Geek, get a feel for the rankings, whether it's for you. But overall, it is fairly well liked and has done a decent job holding its value, all things considered, for the type of game that it is. You can get a bunch of different options. You can get the wooden option, not wooden option, which I guess those are all the options. And moving on, we have Ascension Tactics, the deck building miniatures game. This is going to be by Stoneblade Entertainment. This is going to be taking the Ascension deck building system and building a skirmish game around it. For myself, I didn't back this for a variety of reasons. Price point I thought was overpriced. I thought the price would drop down the road like most of their base games generally do. Additionally, I had backed the other game system, which I'm thinking now is not in this video. The other game system, which I am losing, Ignite, which you should totally back. Let's go ahead and check out Ignite, because I'm pretty sure you could back Ignite. So we're just going to, interrupt this already way too long video and hit enter and try to find Ignite, because we're going to go to Ignite now. Ignite, which I can't find over here at all. Why can't I find Ignite? This is kind of disappointing. Maybe we should just pause the video, or should just keep talking and go to the next page and nothing. So Ignite, you should go ahead and back the Ignite deck building system. I think it was what it's called. I'll find it at the end. But anyways, Ignite, late pledge that one. Moving on from that awkward interlude, Roll Camera, the filmmaking board game. We have late pledge here. This by Malachi Ray Rempin. He's done a few games on Kickstarter. This one was well lauded, well praised by a lot of people. It's all about the production of, it's a dice, I think it's dice drafting or dice manipulation, some form of dice something, as well as the process of building out a theme, building out a film, and having things, elements like, again, a film that's so bad that it's good, or trying for it actually being good. All these different elements of film production. Overall, it was well liked. It was fairly expensive for the game that, in my opinion, it was fairly expensive for the game you were getting, coming in at $49 plus shipping for a game that is like, $40 game on the shelf. That being said, perhaps be your only opportunity. I don't know, I'm commenting on price when I'm trying to rush through this. Petrichor Collector's Edition and Cows Expansion. This is one that I did back because honestly, they gave you an all-in pledge for getting everything that was just way too tempting to pass up on. Petrichor is a game that I've heard a decent amount of good things about. I'm probably making a mistake by jumping in by getting absolutely everything because, of course, I will get the box, have no idea how to deal with anything, and so will not be able to actually play it. It'll sit on my shelf, it'll look at me, it'll stare at me, it'll show up in a few videos of games I want to play, and then about 3.5 years from now, it'll leave the collection with me saying I didn't get to play it. Life is very depressing when you actually talk it through, or maybe I'll just play it and it won't be as depressing. Look at that cow! Look at that cow, and that's that cow right there, that little wooden cow, it's adorable. That's why you should late back this game. Moving on to Quest Avalon Deluxe by Travis by Indie Boards and Cards. This Quest is going to be the re-theming or redone version of Resistance Avalon, and it's going to be a shift to the game system, one that I am intrigued by because of the fact that I really like Resistance Avalon, and Quest is going to be a new version of that, which could be better or worse, but also it is playable with 4 where Resistance Avalon is not, so now I'm already more intrigued. One of the things I like about One Night Ultimate Werewolf is it plays with as little as 3 players. I would recommend 4 ideally, but even with 3 you can get a decent taste of the game going, and if Quest can reduce that 1 player, which for me is often the difference between playing a game like this or not, well, color me interested, and well, that's why I backed it. Moving on, we have Arcana Rising by Grey Fox Games. This is one that looks like it might be a cute little another game along the lines of Seven Wonders, along the lines of Splendor, an accessible game that is appealing and gives you enough stuff to do that you really want to play the game. Or 5 years from now, maybe no one will be talking about it. Which, fun fact, I just saw a quote from Z Garcia. Apparently in 2014, he said 5 years from now, no one's going to be talking about Splendor. So, I mean, that's the price of being in the public space with your sentences left out on the air for everyone to criticize and judge and look at forever. So I'm not judging it. I just thought it was a funny thing to look back on. And keep in mind, Bill Gates once said, I see no reason why anyone would ever need more than 56 kilobytes or whatever it was. 56 kilobytes, to give context, there's 1,000 megabytes in a gigabyte, and there's 1,000 kilobytes in a megabyte. So 56 kilobytes is not a lot of space at all that you carry around, whatever. Tangent. Endangered New Species. This is one of those many games that I ended up backing because I do these videos. I was pulled in, I looked at the game, it looked interesting, it had dice drafting, it had fun animals, it had stuff cooperative and solo play and all those interesting things, and I ended up backing it because, well, it looked interesting, and that was enough for me, I guess. Anyways, you can go ahead and back it as well. Make bad decisions along with me. We'll be bad decision friends together. Northgard Uncharted Lands by Open Sesame Games. This is one that did incredibly well, bringing in that, PC game platform or people, whatever it is. I don't know if it's a PC only. I don't know if it's PC only. Video game. Let's just call it video game. Be safe. 8,214 backers, 514,000 euro raised. All these stretch goals unlocked down to the very last one, the Wyvern or Griffin or whatever they had. This is one I did have the opportunity to play, and I thought it was a solid game system. I wasn't fully pulled in as much as I would have liked to be. I thought it was on the lighter side, which I think is good for the video game crossover crowd. I think it's a solid step up from a game like Small World, but for me, I was not looking for a solid step up from a game like Small World. I'm looking for like heavy punch each other in the face, heavy strategic games like Innis, Blood Rage, Cyclades, or whatnot. I think it's a solid game for the system it's trying to be, not one that I am personally backing, although I am still interested to a degree because I know they're making changes to some of the things that I didn't like as much. The game weight I don't think was being changed, but some of the smaller critiques around it were being adjusted or tweaked or whatnot. At the end of the day, it was a prototype that I played. Moving on, we have Ultimate Werewolf Extreme by Bezier Games, who, fun fact, are launching very shortly. They're launching Castle of Mad King von Ludwig big collector's box. So if you've been chasing down that Suburbia's collector's box for who knows how long, this is the next one that you could chase down and back on Kickstarter and not have to chase down. In any case, moving on, Ultimate Werewolf Extreme options. This is giving you everything Ultimate Werewolf between $69 or $99 for all the Ultimate Werewolf you can ever imagine, and you can get that. And moving on from there, we have Glenmore 2, Highland Games, which we had already. I don't know why that showed up again. We covered that one. Stefanfeld City Collection, Hamburg and Amsterdam. This is one by Queen Games, and it's going to be giving you Bruges and Macau relaunched as Hamburg and Amsterdam with deluxe collector's editions or whatnot. This is by Queen Games. I mean, these might be the best opportunities to get these games right now. We'll see how time plays out, whether they'll hold their value, because these are expensive. They're basically charging they're charging a lot of money. Queen Games is a company that I'm not a fan of their Kickstarter aspect. I don't mind corporate whatever where they charge a ton of money and they give you a ton of value, and I don't mind games that I can just walk away from. Queens is taking that approach of just making it so you can't otherwise get the game and locking down traditional retail lines of distribution, because this game will not go to retail, supposedly. And so, whatever, I'm not a fan. Moving on from there. We go to the Belgian Beers Race board game by BYR Games. This is one that, I don't remember much about the game. I did cover it briefly in a roundup. Had this aspect of running around town, trying different beers, all that. That's about as much as I know. And moving on. We have Rurik Stone and Blade. Rurik Stone and Blade is the expansion to Rurik, a game that I love, and Rurik Stone and Blade, in my opinion, is well worth the price of admission. The stuff it adds to the game, even the 2 basic buildings alone, plus 3 different modules and a whole bunch of other stuff, new characters, gives you a lot of extra content for a game that is already excellent and can only benefit from having more content, more variable content to mix up the experience. I really enjoy Rurik. Not as high as some of my other games in this genre, but really solid game. Again, designed by Stan Kudinsky, so, he's showing up again. And moving on, we have Streets. Streets is going to be by Dave Clark, Sinister Fish Games. It's going to be the, not expansion, but they had Villagers, which did fairly well, and now they have Streets. Same box design, same aesthetic appeal. The game looked very simple and appealing. I have not actually given this one a shot yet. I will hopefully check it out at retail, assuming, reviews stack up or whatever. But if you don't want to wait for that and you want to back it now, well, now's your opportunity. Growl, Madness, and Plagues. This is going to be one that I covered as well with 2,000 backers. Pretty solid. Sometimes you look at the games and you think they don't have an audience, and then 2,000 people jump on it, and you're like, oh, it does have an audience. And this is one that looked like is a kind of cross between a hit and roll game and a party game. It did look intriguing. If you watch some of the videos, it actually looked pretty amusing. It's one that I was tempted by, did not end up backing, but I'm always keeping an eye on for it. Like, there's a whole aspect of passing on the infection, all these different things. Planet Unknown. This is one that would have been in my top 10 Kickstarters of 2020 had I remembered, but I late backed this one, and so it didn't show up on my Kickstarter list, which was a mistake. I need a better system for tracking all my Kickstarters. I actually do have a system somewhere else, but I just foolishly trusted Kickstarter as my resource when I happened to be putting together my top 10 Kickstarters of 2020. That's my fault, not Kickstarter's fault. In any case, the Planet Unknown is going to be a polyomino game, one of my most anticipated Kickstarters at this point, because I have played it, I have enjoyed it, I believe it is accessible, it will get to the table frequently and easily, which is a good thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many amazing deluxeified big box games I have. Arena of the Contest is an amazing game, and I've played it like twice in the past year, versus a game like Isle of Cats, which I got rid of. I played like 6 or 7 times before I got rid of it. So which one am I getting more enjoyment and value out of? So Planet Unknown is one that I am incredibly looking forward to. I expect this to be amongst my favorite games because of the combination of accessibility, of the polyomino games, the funness and all that, combined with the strategy of building out your different tracks and different corporations and different planets with different thingies, all the different thingies going on in this game. I highly recommend giving this one a shot if you haven't already. I thought the late pledge was closing who knows how long ago, but it seems to still be open. Like I said, these late pledge dates are a lie. Moving on, we have the Reckoners Steelslayer. This is one the expansion to the Reckoners. Reckoners is a great game. I have not had the opportunity to play Steelslayers. This is one where, by the way, I can't remember exactly, but if you have the opportunity to pick up Stockpile in the Pledge Manager, you may still be able to. You have to sign up to late pledge. I don't remember how it works. So first in line, so you can't do this yet. Coming soon. But if you have the opportunity to pick up Stockpile in the late pledge, make sure to do so because it is a solid game. I'll have a review coming for that one soon at some point. Moving on, we have Monsters on Board. Monsters on Board is already available to late pledge. This is by Final Frontier Games. This is one that I did not back myself. I was pulled in by. It's dice drafting. It's cutesy. It's pretty. It's deluxeified. It looks good. Art that I love. A company that has mixed feedback in terms of between good and great. They don't really have any bad games, but they have between good and great games. Unfortunately, we live in an age, or fortunately, we live in an age where good often is, well, bad, because great is what we are pursuing more and more. This one had overall pretty positive feedback from those who had played it. It's one that I passed on because I just wasn't confident, and I want to see how it ends up on that one. Moving on, we have Endangered Orphans House of Wrath, another game by Certified Studios in addition to Who Goes There. Because of the sheer amount of Kickstarters we have here, there are going to be a few repeats. Endangered House of Wrath is one that you can go ahead and back because we are here, obviously. It looked intriguing for myself. I backed away from this one only because it looked like the gameplay of Mr. Jack, the gameplay of the Phantom de Opera, but in a package that was twice as expensive. So if the reviews come pouring in and it is well loved, I will still pick this up. But if it's just okay, then I will rely on my trusty Le Phantom de Opera, which I really love. Moving on, we have In Too Deep by Burnt Island Games. This is one that I am still surprised. I mean, don't get me wrong, it raised $207,000 Canadian, 2,800 backers, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at. At the same time, Burnt Island Games typically has done better on their past Kickstarters. In the Hall of the Mountain King, I think, raised like $480,000 or something like that. All in all, solid game. And In Too Deep, this one is one that I thought would be higher in terms of, well, we just covered that. But I played this game on TTS a few times. I played this game in person. I had the prototype. This is a solid experience that I think is bringing something different to the table. To some extent, it's a little fiddly, but it very much is a puzzle. Something I've talked about a lot in games. There's a few common things I talk about when I say whether I like a game. When one of those things is going to be powers and abilities, this game has that to a degree. But another thing I talk about a lot is the puzzle nature of a game, of having different elements of things thrown at you and having to find the way to make your way through that puzzle, finding the common denominator of different elements so that you can drag that win out. And sometimes it's a clear, obvious puzzle. Other times it's just the game mechanics which are ultimately presenting a puzzle. In Too Deep is going to fall into the category of being both. It's very much a clear and obvious puzzle, as well as the game mechanics themselves. You're trying to fulfill different board states and then hopefully win. And I've talked long enough about this because we have to keep moving. Cascadia is another puzzle. Speaking of puzzles, speaking of finding that common denominator, for $29 you can get Cascadia. They have an online implementation that you can play as well. If you want to get a feel for this, you can play this a little online, whatever, a little solo experience that will give you a feel for the game, whether it is for you or not for you. This reminded me very much of Sprawlopolis, although granted in a much bigger box and a different gameplay style, but it had that very Sprawlopolis feel of different mechanics, different goals, and then playing out your criteria to ultimately get the maximization of your score within the system provided. Moving on, we have Soul Givers. Soul Givers was an abstract two-player head-to-head game that I was intrigued by. It was visually delightful to look at, looked intriguing. I totally wanted to back this one. I didn't because it was fairly expensive for a game that didn't have enough feedback or ratings or something to tell me that back with confidence. But if you want to back it, go ahead and jump in on it. Moving on, we have Flourish by Starling Games. This is by the creators of Everdell, which almost made it an instant back. Combined drafting with it, and it should be an instant back. And yet, once the Kickstarter popped up, and once I saw the mechanics and the cards and everything else, I just wasn't pulled in by it. Something about the game did not pull me in once it actually came out. Although by Game Tyrant, Game Tyrant reviewed it. If you want something pretty, something light, Flourish will be there for you. It's like drinking wine with friends on the patio outside. The bees aren't the only thing buzzing. Cute little review from Game Tyrant. I am intrigued by it, but all the same, I plan on checking this out eventually if reviews back it up, or I'll just stick with Everdell, which I love already. Moving on, we have, what do we have? We have Forgotten Depths Co-op Dungeon Adventure by Void Knight Games. This is going to be a light little co-op dungeon adventure in which you are playing out a little dungeon, and that's about all I remember from the game because I covered this in a roundup, but not overly in-depth, so I don't remember all the stuff. Moving on from Return to a Planet Apocalypse. This is by Sandy Peterson. This is a late back. You can late back with their own system. You'll sign up for an email alert or whatever it is, and they'll let you in where you can start backing stuff. This is going to be Planet Apocalypse, which is a solid game that I did put out a review on. I very much wanted to back everything in this game, but I have too many games and other games won in this genre. But it was a solid game with powers and abilities galore. A few aspects of the game that kept me from really diving all in. One is the visual theme of the game just isn't my thing. I'm not into this over-the-top demon gore thing they have going on. And then two is I found the first part of the game was a little bit repetitive in building up what you need to get to, and then the second half was a lot more fun, but it's too much of the intro stuff. And so overall, it was a solid game. I do recommend it. I can see why it's rated highly, but for myself, I ended up passing on this one. Moving on, we have Dinosaur World and Dinosaur Island Roar and Right. Back when I covered this game last time, I had not yet played Dinosaur Island. I have since played Dinosaur Island. I am intrigued by Dinosaur World in the sense that I like Dinosaur Island, still do not like the visual aesthetic of Dinosaur Island at all. Like, it really turns me off from the game. And so I decided to trade Dinosaur Island with the hopes of getting Dinosaur World to the table, or hoping it'll be just as good or better while being more visually appealing to me. Dinosaur Island, to be clear, was a game that it was good for me. It wasn't a great game. And when you have a great game, I will suffer through a bad visual appeal. But for me, I didn't love it as much as I disliked the visual aspect of the game. I'm intrigued by Dinosaur World. I'm hopeful it'll be more that everything that I want and more. I'm also totally prepared to be let down. Again, that's the nature of the game. Moving on, we have Seventh Citadel. Explore, build, you are the hero. This is one I'm excited for. Now, you can get this game on Kickstarter if you can late back it, get it as soon as possible, or you can wait for retail. There will be a retail copy. They have confirmed that. You'll get less content, but you won't need all the content. You'll get it cheaper. So that is your choice to make. I went ahead and got on Kickstarter because I liked it enough, and it's possible I won't fully play through everything, but it'll hold its value. It goes back to that. I'm not worried about backing it because if or when I trade it, it'll hold its value just fine. What they gave me in the prototype was a better version of Seventh Continent, which is why I am so excited for the game. That being said, I have no clue whether the final game will be as well developed as the prototype was in the story, the narrative, the exploration, the consequences to your actions, all those things that were truly impactful in the prototype that I really enjoyed. The final game may just not be as good, or it might be. Time will tell. But ultimately, I'm excited and intrigued and back that one. Moving on, we've Set to Watch Swords of the Coin. Set to Watch Swords of the Coin by Mike Nade, by Rock Manor Games. This is one that is going to be the expansion to Set to Watch, a game that is a solid game that I plan on getting my hands on again because, well, I miss it. Moving on, we have The Thing, the board game. We talked about this already. I talked about Who Goes There. I said The Thing is coming up. This is by Pendragon Game Studio. Again, looked intriguing, but was fairly expensive for what you got. You can go ahead and back this in case you want more Thing stuff for your table, for your shelf, for your whatever. Machina Arcana. This is going to be the 3rd edition Machina Arcana to Eternity. It's going to be giving you, the new version, the expansions or tweaked whatever. There's going to be an upgrade pack, all that stuff for the game. This is one that I went all in on because, well, I want all the stuff for this game, and Machina Arcana I have found to be a thoroughly enjoyable dungeon crawler, a ton of fun to jump in on, to go through, accessible, easy to teach, easy to play, a lot of strategy, depth, reward, all that stuff. Moving on, we have Shaolia, again, because I cover this one. And Fantastic Factories Manufactions. This is going to be the expansion to Fantastic Factories, or more specifically, 2 expansions to Fantastic Factories. For myself, Fantastic Factories was a game that I liked, but didn't love. Lots of people feel strongly about this game. Lots of people love this game. They think it's incredible. They think it's awesome, and that's great. If you want to be one of those people, go ahead and late pledge this game. Moving on, we have Thunderstone Quest, The Enemies Among Us. This is going to be the most recent expansions to Thunderstone Quest, where you can late pledge to get those expansions, as well as any number of other aspects from the base game, from other expansions, from who knows how much content for your Thunderstone Quest experience. Then we have Windward Expansion in Box by Eldorado Games. We already talked about the Age of Atlantis, and this is going to be the Windward Expansion and Big Box for that game in case you want to get in on the Windward experience. For myself, Windward is a game that I'm intrigued by. I'm still intrigued by. Just we have to make decisions because I back too many Kickstarters as it is, and Windward has a fantastic moving thing that looks intriguing, and it looks like an interesting game that I am pulled in by to an extent, but visually the game does not pull me in, and I primarily use that as my excuse to not back this game. Then we have Apogee, A New Space Tale, which I don't remember covering. It's possible I did. I don't remember covering this one. I don't know anything about it. So it's basically just saying that if you want to back it, it's here. It's on the list. Then we have Dungeon Fighter by Horrible Guild, that they put out a full, relaunching of Dungeon Fighter that you can late back now. This is going to give you the base game plus 3 different standalone expansions, or you can just get absolutely everything. This is going to be a dexterity-based dungeon crawl to a degree. It's, half party game, half strategy, and hopefully, if I were writing taglines, I'd say 50% strategy game, 50% board game, or 50%. I'm losing my words. 50% dexterity game, 50% strategy game, 100% fun. That being said, I've never actually played it, so I can't actually say that. I can just pretend to say it. Hogs of War, the miniatures game by Stone Sword Games. This is another one that I was very intrigued by. It had that polyomino base building. It had light miniature combat that was very reminiscent of Rivet Wars, which I did enjoy. I didn't back it because, like I said, choices. You got to make hard choices in life, and I chose to pass on this one just because it was an okay back. It wasn't an amazing back, and I wondered if it would go the same way as Rivet Wars, a game that I liked but eventually moved on from. Cactus Town. This is one that I am still eyeing that late pledge button and may well back this game. This is going to have action programming as a mechanic, which generally is a mechanic that I like to a degree. It can be hilariously funny, or it can be strategically deep, or it can be a mess. That's the problem. It can be any of those 3 things. I don't know where Cactus Town will lie. I am intrigued by it. I'm still eyeing that late pledge button because I may well end up going in on it because life is full of bad decisions. But anyways, Cactus Town, if you want to jump into this, you can get it for as little as, $49 for the Sheriff Deluxe Edition, or €25, not dollars, for the Cactus Town base game, or as much as, €94 for absolutely everything. I believe it was same price in the Pledge Manager. From there, we have Dungeon Universalis second printing. You can still late pledge this game. I believe the link was in the update somewhere, so you might have to crawl through the updates to find it, or to be signed up for the late pledge when it's open. It might be coming soon. I don't recall exactly, but this is Dungeon Universalis, which is basically the all-encompassing dungeon game that says that it can replicate any dungeon system at all. You want to play a Gloomhaven scenario in this game, you can supposedly do so. I wouldn't know, but I trust them. Then we have Dungeon Drop Too Deep and Tavern Tales. By the way, if you're getting fatigued, we're down to like 8 left. Dungeon Drop Too Deep and Tavern Tales is going to be by, I don't remember the name of the company, but it's Dungeon Drop. Dungeon Drop is a light little game where you toss a whole bunch of cubes into a space and then proceed to try to like use your powers or abilities to lock off and encounter and do whatever to get all the cubes in the most efficient way possible. Light, little, simple game that you can back now. High Rise, the Ultra Plastic Edition. This is one that is, well, it's High Rise. It's a reprint of High Rise, but with plastic stuff instead of just standees, because once the game was well received, did fairly well, they said, hey, let's do the exact same thing, but with all the extras that we wanted to the first time round, but we didn't have the goodwill to ask people to spend that much money on this game before it was well rated. So this is basically that game, and coming back with new stuff, so you can get just the fixed kit, just the Ultra Plastic module, or you can get the whole kit and caboodle. Then we have Herbaceous Pocket Edition by, this is by Eduardo Braf, but it's the name of the company, I can't remember the name of the company. Why can't I remember the name of the company? In any case, that company. So this is going to be Herbaceous. This is going to be the pocket edition of Herbaceous. Herbaceous is a game that I did put a review on it. My wife and I do like this game. We also like some recommended Spirits of the Wild because I said I liked Herbaceous, and I do like Spirits of the Wild. I like Spirits of the Wild more. My wife likes Herbaceous more. At least I think she does. I can't remember her ratings. Either way, I know that this is a fun game, solid game. This is the pocket edition of that game in case you wanted to back that. Cartographers, Heroes, and 3 map expansions. This is going to be by Thunderworks Games. This is Cartographers Heroes, the new standalone version of Cartographers, giving you more content for your Cartographers experience, all available to late pledge. Then we have Twisted Fables by Dimension Games. It's going to be Dimension Games is going to be of Deep Madness fames, and Twisted Fables is their 2-player head-to-head, fighting game with Twisted Fables. And it was a solid game. I put a review on it. I am interested in it. I am intrigued. I didn't end up backing it because there were some aspects of the game that I still want to see further developed. I still own own is a relative term, it's a prototype. I still have the prototype, I'm still intrigued by it, I'm still keeping an eye on it, but I think for myself, I kind of want to see what expansions bring to the table before I dive into it more heavily. There were aspects of the game that I really enjoyed, and aspects of the game that I felt I could see getting a little stale over multiple plays, and in general, 2-player games with variable player powers are always a hard sell for me, because if I'm not playing them a lot, I tend to not play them at all. And so we'll see how time plays on this one, but overall I think it's a solid game for the system that it's trying to be. Then we have Veiled Fate by Ivy Studios. Veiled Fate is going to be coming off the heels of Moonrakers. Moonrakers, a well-loved, well-reviewed game that I have on my shelf, need to get to the table so that I can do my own review of whether I liked it or not. But in any case, Veiled Fate is going to be where they had a word for it. It was strategic deduction, I think the word they used, but overall it's going to be a game where there is deduction and trying to figure out what's going on, but ultimately it's more than that. It's also about the strategy of the game, and you can win the game without knowing who is who if you play the game right. So overall, a game that did pretty well. If I recall correctly, it's like $780,000. A solid follow-up to Moonrakers, which brought in, I believe, roughly $500,000. Good for them. And if you want to join, they had a few options in terms of backing it at different pledge levels with different quality, different whatever, all that stuff. Then we have Lost Ones by Greenbrier Games. This is going to be at Greenbrier Games. I can't remember. They have like a dungeon. They have a few games under their belts. But anyways, The Lost Ones is going to be a kind of exploration game, kind of reminiscent of Seventh Continent to a degree, with degree of story and exploration and narrative and who knows what, and this whole adventurer guide. I didn't overly look into it. I wasn't overly pulled into it myself, but if you want to check it out, it's available to late pledge. And down to 2 left, Bios Mesofauna and Galenus by Sierra Madre Games. This is one by Phil Eklund. One of these is by Phil Eklund, and Galenus, I don't remember who it was, but this is a series of 2 games that I covered briefly in a roundup. 2 very different games just put together in the same Kickstarter. You can check those out and late pledge them. And finally, just shy of an hour. Maybe we can make this under an hour. We have Campaign Trail 2nd Edition and Green Party Expansion. This is going to be by Grey Fox Games again. This is going to be Campaign Trail, a well-rated game that this is their reprint that they took over. They took the license or whatever it was, and they put out the reprint of the game as well as an expansion. Looks like an intriguing system that I ended up late backing this one myself, and you can go ahead and late back it. And that is everything, and next time I need a cup of water with me. But overall, that is my late pledge roundup. This might be completely overwhelming. Ultimately, the question I have for you, and this is very important if you made it this far, is was this useful? Because if it's useful, I'll be doing this on a roughly once a month basis. If it's not useful, well, it's a lot of work, and if it's just an hour of me just rapidly jumping through games and it doesn't work for you, that's totally fine. Ultimately, this is about, there's always different aspects of the hobby that I want to dive into, or different aspects of Kickstarter, and having, being a resource for more and more late pledges could be a good thing, or it could be completely overwhelming as I spend an hour rattling through who knows how many different Kickstarters at any given point. And so your feedback is the important part at this point, and is going to be the determining criteria whether I continue to do this or not. My feelings will not be hurt. It's ultimately a question of whether it's useful for you or not. And that's everything. My voice is getting a little hoarse over here. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I will cut this off before we actually cross an hour. And as always, and until next time, have a good one.